The gunshot that shattered the boxing gym's silence wasn't meant for Alicia Monroe. But when three armed men burst through the doors hunting Ryu Jae-won, the Korean Mafia boss who had somehow followed her to the one place she thought was safe, she realized her past was about to collide with his present in the most dangerous way possible. She had been wrapping her hands when the chaos erupted, the same hands that once earned her the title Unbreakable before she walked away from everything. Now, as Jae-won pressed his back against the storage room door with blood trickling from his temple, those same hands were the only thing standing between them and execution. "They followed you?" she whispered, her fighter's instincts already calculating angles and exits. "Someone in my organization betrayed me," he replied, his voice deadly calm despite the footsteps spreading across the gym floor. Alicia's jaw tightened. She had quit fighting to escape violence, but violence had found her anyway, wearing an expensive suit and carrying secrets that could get them both killed. The door exploded inward. 3 Torres syndicate soldiers, weapons raised, murder in their eyes. Alicia moved before Jae-won did, not with fear, but with a precision that made him realize the waitress who had challenged him at the diner was something far more dangerous than he'd imagined. Welcome to Korean Mafia lovers. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us bring you these intense stories every week. 2 days earlier, Alicia Monroe had been invisible. Just another black waitress in Harbor District's all-night diner, serving coffee to truckers and keeping her head down during the graveyard shift. She moved through her routine with practiced efficiency. Take orders, pour coffee, collect tips, ignore the ache in her knuckles when she gripped heavy trays too tightly. Most customers didn't look at her twice. She preferred it that way. But when Ryu Jae-won walked through the diner's glass doors at 2:47 a.m., invisibility became impossible. Power followed him like a shadow, not the loud, aggressive kind that demanded attention, but the quiet, absolute authority that made conversations stop mid-sentence. He was Korean, probably early 30s, with sharp features and the kind of tailored suit that cost more than Alicia made in 6 months. His dark hair was perfectly styled despite the late hour, and when he moved, it was with the controlled grace of someone who had never doubted his place in the world. Alicia had seen men like him before, not in diners, but in the VIP sections of underground fighting venues where money changed hands faster than punches, men who owned things, people, territories. He chose a corner booth, his back to the wall, eyes scanning the room with the systematic attention of someone who had survived, by noticing details others missed. His companion was younger, nervous, constantly checking his phone. "Business meeting," Alicia muttered to herself, refilling the coffee pot. "At 3 in the morning, sure." She approached their table with professional detachment. "What can I get you?" Jae-won looked up, and for a moment she felt the full weight of his attention. His eyes were dark, intelligent, and completely unreadable. "Coffee. Black." "Same," the younger man added quickly. As Alicia poured, she caught fragments of their conversation. Something about shipments, surveillance, and someone named Torres. The younger man's voice kept rising with anxiety until Jae-won's quiet "lower your voice" cut through the tension like a blade. But the man didn't listen. Instead, he slammed his fist on the table. "They killed Martinez. They knew exactly where to find him." The entire diner went silent. Alicia set down the coffee pot and turned to face them. "I'm going to need you to keep it down, or I'll have to ask you to leave." The younger man stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Jae-won's companion started to stand, his face flushing with indignation, but Jae-won raised one hand, barely a gesture, and the man froze. "You're bold," Jae-won said, his voice carrying a note of genuine curiosity. "I'm working," Alicia replied simply. "And this is a family establishment." She didn't say it with fear or aggression. She said it like she meant it, like his anger wasn't the kind that shaped the city outside the diner's windows, like his authority ended at her section of worn vinyl booths. Jae-won studied her for a long moment, his head tilted slightly as if she were a puzzle he hadn't encountered before. The silence stretched until his companion shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "We'll keep it down," Jae-won said finally. Alicia nodded and walked away, feeling his gaze follow her, until she disappeared behind the counter. For the next hour, they spoke in whispers. Alicia tried not to eavesdrop, but certain words drifted across the empty diner anyway. Betrayal, territory, consequences. When they finally left, J1 placed a $100 bill on the table for a $12 check. He didn't look back. But Alicia had the distinct feeling this wasn't over. She was right. 2 nights later, she was leaving her second job, cleaning offices in the financial district, when she noticed the black sedan following her. It stayed 3 cars back, matching her pace as she walked toward the bus stop. When she turned left, it turned left. When she ducked into a convenience store, it idled at the corner. Alicia's pulse quickened, but not with panic, with recognition. Someone was hunting her. She had learned to read danger during her fighting years, when rival gyms would send scouts to watch her train, when promoters with gambling debts would pressure her to throw fights. She knew the difference between coincidence and threat. This was threat. Instead of heading home, Alicia took a detour to Iron Gate Boxing Gym. It was nearly midnight, but she still had keys from her training days. The gym would be empty, secure, and most importantly, it had multiple exits. She slipped inside through the side entrance, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. The familiar smell of leather and sweat hit her immediately, along with memories she'd spent 3 years trying to forget. Heavy bags hung like sleeping giants in the dim light. The ring dominated the center of the room, its ropes casting long shadows across the canvas. Alicia had once been a champion here, unbreakable Monroe, undefeated in 37 amateur fights before turning professional. She'd had speed, power, and an instinct for reading opponents that coaches called supernatural. Then Marcus Webb, her trainer and the man she'd trusted with her career, had asked her to lose. "Just one fight, Alicia. The money will set us both up for life." She'd refused. The threats had started the next day, not against her younger sister, her grandmother, everyone she loved. Webb had gotten in deep with the wrong people, and her reputation was the only thing valuable enough to pay off his debts. So she'd walked away, disappeared from the circuit, became invisible, until tonight. Alicia moved to the equipment room and began wrapping her hands, not because she planned to fight, but because the ritual calmed her mind. The familiar motion of winding tape around her knuckles helped her think clearly. That's when the gym's main door exploded inward. Ryu Jaewon stumbled inside, blood trickling from a cut near his eyebrow, his expensive suit torn at the shoulder. He moved with the controlled urgency of someone who had just escaped something deadly. He stopped short when he saw her. "You," he said, surprise flickering across his features. "You're bleeding," Alicia replied, pointing toward his forehead. Jaewon touched the cut absently, as if he'd forgotten about it. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same." He stepped closer, and she noticed his knuckles were scraped raw. Whatever had happened outside, it had been violent and recent. "Someone ambushed my meeting," he said, "killed 2 of my men. They're still hunting me." Alicia's stomach dropped. "The Torres syndicate." His eyes sharpened. "How do you know that name?" "I heard you talking about them at the diner." Jaewon studied her with renewed intensity. "You listen carefully." "I survive carefully." Something in her tone made him pause. He looked around the gym, taking in the professional equipment, the championship banners hanging from the rafters, the photos of fighters on the walls. "You train here," he said. It wasn't a question. "I used to." "Show me your stance." Alicia blinked. "Excuse me." "You challenged me at the diner," Jaewon said, his voice carrying that same quiet authority that had silenced his companion. "Let's see if you can back it up." It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't mockery. It was pure challenge, clean, brutal, simple. Alicia should have refused, should have told him she didn't fight anymore, that she'd walked away from that life for good reasons. Instead, she found herself stepping onto the mat. Her posture changed instantly, not aggressively but purposefully. Her feet found their natural spacing, her weight distributed with the unconscious precision of someone who had trained thousands of hours. The waitress disappeared, replaced by something harder, more dangerous. Jaewon's expression shifted. "You've trained seriously." "Since I was 14. And you stopped why?" Alicia's jaw tightened. Life got complicated. He didn't press, but she could see him filing the information away. Instead, he raised his own fists, not to hurt her, but to test her. They circled each other slowly, measuring distance and timing. J1 moved well for someone in a business suit, his footwork suggesting formal training. But when he threw a quick jab to test her reflexes, Alicia slipped it with movement so fluid it looked effortless. She didn't counterattack. Instead, she placed her palm against his shoulder, not hard, just firm enough to redirect his momentum and demonstrate control. J1 froze. That wasn't beginner's luck. That was mastery disguised as restraint. "Where did you learn that?" he asked. Alicia stepped back, beginning to unwrap her hands. "I don't fight anymore." "You should," he said, and it wasn't a compliment, it was recognition. Before she could respond, the gym's main door burst open again. 3 men in dark clothing rushed inside, weapons drawn, their eyes scanning the space with predatory focus. The Torres syndicate had found them. Alicia reacted before conscious thought kicked in. Years of training had programmed her body to respond to threats with precision rather than panic. She grabbed J1's wrist and pulled him toward the equipment room, her mind already calculating angles and cover positions. "Back room now," she hissed, dragging him away from the main floor just as the first gunshot shattered the silence. Bullets splintered the heavy bags where they'd been standing moments before. Leather and sand exploded across the gym floor as the Torres soldiers spread out, their boots echoing against the concrete. In the storage room, J1 pressed his back against the door while Alicia moved to the small window, peering through the blinds at their attackers. 3 men, all armed, moving with military precision as they cleared the space. "They followed you here," she whispered. "Someone in my organization gave them my location," J1 replied, his voice deadly calm despite their circumstances. This was supposed to be a safe meeting. Alicia's mind raced. She'd come here to escape whatever danger had been following her, only to walk into something worse. How did they know about this place? "They didn't, they followed me." His dark eyes met hers. "Which means you're not safe anymore either. They've seen your face." The reality hit her like a physical blow. She wasn't just a witness, she was a liability. In the criminal world J1 inhabited, liabilities didn't live long enough to become problems. Footsteps approached their hiding spot. Shadows moved past the crack under the door. "We have maybe 30 seconds before they find us," Alicia said, her fighter's instincts taking over. "What's our play?" J1 studied her with surprise. Most civilians would be paralyzed with fear by now, but Alicia was analyzing their tactical situation, like someone who'd been in life-or-death scenarios before. "The back exit leads to an alley," he said. "If we can reach it—" "They'll have someone covering it," Alicia interrupted. "Standard procedure for a 3-man team." Now he was staring at her with open curiosity. "How do you know that?" Before she could answer, a voice called out from the main gym floor. "J1, we know you're here. Come out and we'll make it quick." "Generous," Alicia muttered. "Miguel Torres doesn't believe in prolonged suffering," J1 replied. "He prefers efficiency." "And you know this because—" "Because I killed his brother last month." Alicia turned to stare at him. "You what?" "Carlos Torres was moving drugs through my territory. I warned him twice." J1's expression remained impassive. He chose not to listen. The casual way he discussed murder should have terrified her. Instead, Alicia found herself oddly reassured. Whatever else J1 might be, he wasn't helpless. A shadow paused outside their door. "In here," one of the gunmen called to his companions. Alicia's pulse spiked, but her mind remained clear. She'd been in high-pressure situations before, not with guns, but with opponents who wanted to hurt her just as badly. The key was staying calm and using whatever advantages you had. "When they come through that door," she whispered to J1, "go low, I'll go high." He blinked. "You're not running." "Where exactly would I run to?" she shot back. "Besides, I'm tired of being afraid." Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition of a kindred spirit. The door exploded inward. Chaos erupted in the confined space. The first gunman through the doorway expected to find cowering civilians. Instead, he found J1 driving his shoulder into the man's midsection, while Alicia's fist connected with his throat in a strike so precise it dropped him instantly. The second attacker tried to bring his weapon to bear, but Alicia was already moving. She swept his legs with a hook kick that sent him crashing into the storage shelves, then followed up with an elbow strike that left him unconscious before he hit the ground. The third man had a clear shot at J1's back, but Alicia caught his wrist and twisted until the gun clattered to the floor. A knee to his solar plexus doubled him over, and a controlled punch to the base of his skull ended the fight. Silence returned to the storage room. J1 straightened slowly, staring at the three unconscious men, then at Alicia. She was breathing hard but controlled, her stance still balanced and ready despite the violence that had just erupted. "You were a champion," he said quietly. "Weren't you?" It wasn't a question. Alicia wiped sweat from her forehead, her adrenaline beginning to fade. "I was good at what I did." "What happened? Why did you quit?" She hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Someone I trusted tried to force me to throw a fight. When I refused, they threatened my family, so I disappeared." The simple words carried years of pain and sacrifice. J1 understood immediately. He'd seen talented people destroyed by the corruption that infected every competitive arena where serious money changed hands. "Who was it?" he asked. "Does it matter? It's over." "It's not over if you're still hiding." Alicia met his gaze. "And what would you suggest? That I go back to fighting? Pretend the threats never happened?" "I'd suggest you stop letting other people's fear control your life." The words hit harder than any punch she'd taken in the ring. Because he was right. She'd been running for 3 years, working dead-end jobs and pretending she was someone else, all because Marcus Webb had been too weak to face his own consequences. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "We need to leave," J1 said. "Police involvement will complicate things. Complicate things for you, maybe. I'm just a waitress who was in the wrong place at the wrong time." J1's expression grew serious. "No, you're not. You're a witness to a Torres syndicate operation. You fought their soldiers and won. Miguel doesn't forgive that kind of humiliation." The truth settled over her like ice water. By helping J1, she'd painted a target on her own back. The invisible life she'd built was about to crumble. "So, what are you saying?" she asked. "I'm saying you have 2 choices. You can run again, change your name, move to another city, spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Or you can fight back, with me." Alicia stared at him. "You're asking me to join your organization. I'm asking you to help me find whoever betrayed me before they get us both killed. After that?" He shrugged. "We'll see." It was insane. She'd spent 3 years avoiding exactly this kind of situation, and now she was being asked to dive headfirst into something even more dangerous. But as the sirens grew louder, and she looked at the unconscious men scattered around the storage room, Alicia realized something had shifted inside her. For the first time in years, she'd felt like herself again. Not the invisible waitress, but the fighter who'd never backed down from a challenge. "I have conditions," she said. "Name them. I'm not your employee. We're partners." "Equal say in decisions." J1 nodded. "Agreed. And when this is over, when we find your traitor and deal with the Torres problem, I walk away clean. No obligations, no debts. If that's what you want." Alicia extended her hand. "Then we have a deal." J1 shook it, his grip firm and warm. "Welcome to the war, Alicia Monroe." As they prepared to leave through the gym's back exit, Alicia caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror, mounted on the storage room wall. For the first time in 3 years, she recognized the woman looking back at her. Unbreakable. The safe house was nothing like Alicia had expected. Instead of some gritty warehouse or abandoned building, J1 led her to an upscale apartment in the financial district, 30 floors up with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. The space was minimally furnished, but expensive, all clean lines and neutral colors. "This is where you hide from the Mafia?" Alicia asked, setting down her gym bag. "Sometimes the best hiding place is in plain sight," J1 replied, moving to the kitchen and pulling out his phone. "Besides, Miguel Torres expects me to run to the docks or the warehouse district. He won't think to look for me in a building full of investment bankers." While he made calls to his remaining lieutenants, Alicia explored the apartment. The refrigerator was stocked with expensive food that looked untouched. The bedroom contained a single king-sized bed and nothing else. No personal photos, no books, no indication that anyone actually lived here. "How many places like this do you have?" she asked when he finished his calls. "Enough." Jae-won loosened his tie, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired. "My people are secure for now, but we lost more than just the 2 men at the ambush. Someone leaked the location of 3 different safe houses. Half my organization is scattered to the wind." Alicia sank onto the leather couch. "Any idea who the traitor is?" "I have suspicions, but suspicions aren't proof, and in my business you don't act without certainty." "What kind of suspicions?" Jae-won studied her for a moment, as if deciding how much to trust her. "My second-in-command, Park Min-ho. He's been with me for 5 years, knows all my protocols. But lately," he shook his head, "his gambling debts have been growing, and he was the only one who knew about tonight's meeting location. So confront him. If I'm wrong, I lose my most trusted lieutenant and create doubt in the ranks. If I'm right but can't prove it, he'll disappear before I can get answers." Alicia understood the dilemma. In her fighting days, she'd seen careers destroyed by false accusations and real betrayals alike. Trust was the foundation of any partnership, but it was also the most dangerous vulnerability. "What about the Torres angle?" she asked. "Maybe we approach this from their side." Jae-won raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Miguel wants revenge for his brother's death, right? So he's probably not thinking clearly. Angry people make mistakes. You're suggesting we use his anger against him. I'm suggesting we give him a target he can't resist." Understanding dawned in Jae-won's eyes. "Me. You, but on our terms. Set up a meeting, control the environment, force him to reveal how he's getting his information." It was a dangerous plan, using Jae-won as bait to draw out both the Torres syndicate and the traitor in his organization. But it was also the kind of bold move that could end the threat permanently. "There's a problem," Jae-won said. "Miguel won't meet with me directly, too much bad blood." "Then we need an intermediary, someone he trusts." "I might know someone." Jae-won pulled out his phone again. "Elena Vasquez. She runs numbers for several organizations, including Torres. Neutral party, but she owes me a favor." While he made the call, Alicia moved to the windows. The city spread out below them, lights twinkling like stars. Somewhere down there, people were living normal lives, going to work, raising families, worrying about ordinary problems. She'd been one of them just hours ago. Now she was planning to use a Mafia boss as bait to catch a traitor and a killer. "Elena will set up the meeting," Jae-won said, ending his call. "Tomorrow night, neutral ground, a restaurant in Chinatown that caters to our kind of business. And you trust her?" "I trust her self-interest. She makes money when there's peace between organizations. A war between me and Torres would be bad for business." Alicia nodded, but something nagged at her. What if this Elena is the leak? What if she's been feeding information to multiple sides? Jae-won went very still. That would be problematic. Because she knows about this safe house. The realization hit them both at the same time. If Elena Vasquez was playing multiple angles, their location was already compromised. They needed to move, and fast. Jae-won was already grabbing a go-bag from the bedroom closet when the building's fire alarm began blaring. "That's not a drill," Alicia said, recognizing the urgency in the sound. They rushed to the windows. 30 floors below, black SUVs were pulling up to the building's entrance. Men in dark clothing were pouring out, moving with military precision toward the lobby. "How long to reach this floor?" Alicia asked. 5 minutes if they take the elevators. Less if they use the stairs and know the building layout. Which meant Elena had given them more than just the address. She'd provided floor plans and tactical information. "Emergency stairs?" Alicia asked. "They'll have those covered." "Then we go up." Jae-won stared at her. "Up? Roof access. Every building this tall has helicopter landing capability for emergencies. I don't have a helicopter, but you have contacts who do, right?" Understanding flickered in his eyes. He grabbed his phone, dialing rapidly as they headed for the stairwell. The climb to the roof was brutal, 10 flights of stairs while carrying gear and listening to the sound of boots echoing below them. By the time they burst through the roof access door, Alicia's lungs were burning. 2 minutes out, Jaywon said, ending his call. Private medical helicopter. The pilot owes me. Medical helicopter. Sometimes my business involves injuries that can't be treated at regular hospitals. Of course it did. The sound of the roof access door slamming open behind them made them both spin around. 3 Torres soldiers emerged, weapons drawn. End of the line, the lead gunman called out. Alicia and Jaywon were trapped on the roof with nowhere to run. The helicopter was still 90 seconds away, too long to wait with armed men advancing on their position. Any brilliant ideas? Jaywon asked. Alicia looked around desperately. The roof was mostly empty except for HVAC equipment and a maintenance shed, nothing that could provide meaningful cover against automatic weapons. Then she spotted it, a construction crane on the building next door, its arm extending over their roof at about the same height. How do you feel about heights? She asked. Jaywon followed her gaze. You're insane. You have a better idea? The helicopter's rotors were becoming audible in the distance, but the gunmen were only 20 feet away now. In seconds, they'd be close enough that missing would be impossible. Trust me, Alicia said, grabbing Jaywon's hand. They ran toward the edge of the roof as bullets sparked off the concrete behind them. At the last second, Alicia leaped, pulling Jaywon with her into empty air 30 stories above the street. For a terrifying moment, they were falling. Then Alicia's hands closed around the crane's support cable. Her fighters' grip strengthened timing, saving both their lives. They swung across the gap between buildings like a pendulum, landing hard on the adjacent roof. Behind them, the Torres soldiers stared in disbelief. The helicopter appeared over the skyline, its spotlight illuminating the roof as it descended toward them. Remind me never to doubt your tactical instincts, Jaywon said, breathing hard. Just returning the favor, Alicia replied. You believed I could fight. I believed you could fly. As they climbed into the helicopter, Alicia realized something had fundamentally changed between them. They weren't just allies anymore. They were partners who had trusted each other with their lives and survived. But the betrayal that had driven them to this point was still out there, and Miguel Torres wouldn't give up easily. The war was just beginning. The helicopter set them down at a private airfield outside the city, where Jaywon kept another safe house. This one a converted hangar that looked abandoned from the outside, but contained a sophisticated command center within. Banks of monitors showed security feeds from across his territory, and a conference table dominated the center of the space. Welcome to the real headquarters, Jaywon said as they entered. 3 people were waiting for them, a woman in her 40s with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes, a young man with multiple computer screens, and an older Korean man whose bearing suggested military background. Alicia, meet my inner circle, Jaywon said. Dr. Sarah Chen, my strategic advisor. Tommy Park, intelligence and communications, and Colonel Kim, security operations. Dr. Chen stepped forward first. So you're the fighter who saved our boss's life. Impressive work at the gym. How do you know about that? Alicia asked. We monitor police frequencies, Tommy explained, not looking up from his screens. 3 unconscious Torres soldiers found at Iron Gate boxing gym. Witnesses reported seeing a man and woman fleeing the scene. Colonel Kim studied Alicia with professional interest. Your technique was efficient. Military training. Boxing, amateur and professional circuit before I retired. Retired young, Dr. Chen observed. Why? Alicia glanced at Jaywon, who nodded encouragingly. Someone tried to force me to throw a fight. When I refused, they threatened my family. Marcus Webb, Tommy said suddenly, his fingers flying across his keyboard. Former trainer, current gambling addict with connections to the Castellano crime family. Outstanding debts of approximately $2 million. Everyone stared at him. What? Tommy shrugged. I ran a background check when you entered the building. Standard security protocol. Webb is still active, Alicia asked, her voice tight. Very much so. He's been trying to rebuild his reputation by training fighters for underground circuits. Illegal venues where the money is better, but the safety regulations are flexible. Alicia felt old anger rising in her chest. While she'd been hiding and working dead-end jobs, Webb had continued profiting from the sport she'd been forced to abandon. "Focus," J1 said gently. "We'll deal with Webb later. Right now, we need to address the immediate threat." Dr. Chen activated the main display screen, showing a map of the city with various locations marked in red. "The Torres syndicate has moved aggressively since tonight's failed ambush. They've taken control of 3 of our distribution points and are pressuring our allies to switch sides." "How?" J1 asked. "By demonstrating that they have inside information about our operations," Colonel Kim replied grimly. "They knew exactly which locations to hit and when our security would be lightest." "Which confirms we have a traitor," Alicia said. "More than confirms it," Tommy added, pulling up a new screen. "I've been analyzing communication patterns from the past month. Someone has been accessing our secure servers and downloading operational data." "Can you trace it?" "Working on it. But whoever this is, they're good. They're using proxy servers and encrypted channels." J1 moved to the conference table, his expression dark. "Elena Vasquez confirmed the meeting with Miguel Torres for tomorrow night. Golden Dragon Restaurant, private dining room." "That's a trap," Colonel Kim said immediately. "Of course it's a trap. The question is whether we can turn it to our advantage." Dr. Chen frowned. "You're still planning to go?" "We're planning to end this," Alicia interjected. "Miguel wants revenge and your traitor wants J1 dead. We give them both what they think they want." "Explain," Dr. Chen said. Alicia moved to the map display. "The Golden Dragon has multiple exits, but only one private dining room. If we control the environment and force them to commit to their plan, we can identify the traitor and neutralize the Torres threat simultaneously. By using J1 as bait," Colonel Kim said disapprovingly. "By using me as bait," Alicia corrected. "Miguel has seen my face. He knows I'm the one who took down his soldiers. If I'm at that meeting, he won't be able to resist trying to eliminate me personally." "Absolutely not," J1 said firmly. "You're not trained for this kind of operation. I'm trained to fight multiple opponents in a confined space under pressure. How is this different? Because these opponents have guns. So did the ones at the gym, and we handled them fine." Dr. Chen held up a hand. "Both of you, stop. We need to think this through strategically." She turned to Tommy. "How long until you can identify our traitor?" "Give me 12 hours with full access to everyone's devices and communication records." "Do it," J1 ordered. "Colonel Kim, I want security protocols for the restaurant. Every entrance, every exit, every possible angle of attack." "And if the traitor is someone in this room?" Alicia asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Everyone looked at everyone else with sudden suspicion. "It's not," J1 said firmly. "These people have been with me for years." "Marcus Webb had been with me for 3 years when he tried to destroy my career," Alicia replied. "Time doesn't guarantee loyalty." Dr. Chen's expression was thoughtful. "She's right to be cautious. We should operate under the assumption that any of us could be compromised." "Including me?" J1 asked. "Including you? For all we know, this entire situation is an elaborate setup to eliminate rivals within your own organization." The paranoia was spreading, but Alicia recognized it as necessary. In a world where betrayal was currency, trust became the most dangerous luxury. "There's one way to test everyone's loyalty," she said. "We give each person different information about tomorrow's plan. See which version reaches Miguel Torres." Tommy looked up from his computers. "That's actually brilliant. Classic counterintelligence technique." "What kind of different information?" Colonel Kim asked. "Timing, location details, security arrangements. Small variations that wouldn't affect the overall plan, but would identify the source of any leak." J1 nodded slowly. "We'll need to be careful about who gets what information." "Leave that to me," Dr. Chen said. "I'll create the variations and track the distribution." As the team began planning their counterintelligence operation, Alicia found herself studying each person's reactions. Dr. Chen was calm and analytical, exactly what you'd expect from a strategic advisor. Tommy was excited by the technical challenge. Colonel Kim was focused on security details. Any of them could be the traitor. All of them had access to the information that had been leaked. And tomorrow night they would all be in position to either save J1's life or ensure his death. There's something else we need to consider, Alicia said as the meeting began to wind down. What if Miguel doesn't want to kill Jaewon quickly? What if he wants him to suffer? What do you mean? Dr. Chen asked. Revenge isn't always about efficiency. Sometimes it's about sending a message. If Miguel takes Jaewon alive, he could torture information out of him. Use him as leverage against other organizations. Jaewon's expression darkened. You're suggesting he might try to take me prisoner? I'm suggesting we plan for multiple scenarios, including the one where you don't walk out of that restaurant. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the implications. If that happens, Jaewon said quietly, you abort the mission and disappear. All of you. Like hell, Alicia replied. We're partners, remember? Partners don't abandon each other. This isn't a boxing match, Alicia. If I'm captured, you can't fight your way through an entire syndicate to rescue me. Watch me. The quiet intensity in her voice made everyone turn to look at her. In that moment, they saw not the waitress or even the retired fighter, but something harder and more dangerous. You walked away from everything once to protect people you cared about, Jaewon said. Don't make the same mistake again. I'm not walking away, Alicia replied. I'm walking toward the fight I should have had 3 years ago. As the meeting broke up and everyone dispersed to their preparations, Jaewon caught Alicia's arm. Why are you doing this? He asked. Really? She considered the question seriously. Because for the first time in 3 years I feel like myself again, and because... She paused, meeting his eyes. Because you're worth fighting for. It wasn't a declaration of love. It was something deeper. Recognition. Respect. The acknowledgement that some people were worth risking everything to protect. Jaewon nodded, understanding passing between them without words. Tomorrow night, they would walk into a trap together, and one way or another, it would end. The Golden Dragon restaurant occupied the corner of a narrow street in Chinatown, its red lanterns casting warm light over the evening crowds. From the outside, it looked like any other family-owned establishment, modest, welcoming, unremarkable. But Alicia knew that the most dangerous places often hid behind ordinary facades. She sat in the passenger seat of Jaewon's sedan, watching the building through tinted windows. They'd been surveilling for an hour, noting the positions of Torres soldiers, identifying escape routes and waiting for Tommy's final intelligence report. 3 vehicles, 8 men total. Colonel Kim's voice crackled through their earpieces. 2 at the front entrance, 2 at the rear, 4 inside. Any sign of Miguel? Jaewon asked. Negative. He's either not here yet, or he's using the tunnels. Alicia frowned. Tunnels? Chinatown has an extensive underground network, Dr. Chen explained through the comm, built during Prohibition, expanded during various territorial wars. The Golden Dragon has access points. Which means he could already be inside, waiting, Alicia said, or he could be planning to disappear the moment things go wrong, Jaewon replied. Miguel's not stupid. He knows this could be a trap. Tommy's voice cut through the static. I've got movement on the surveillance feeds. Black SUV approaching from the east. Through the restaurant's windows, Alicia could see figures moving in the private dining room. The trap was being set, but she still didn't know who was walking into it. Any word on our traitor? She asked. Still analyzing the data from our test, Dr. Chen replied. But I should have an answer soon. Jaewon checked his watch. We go in 5 minutes. Everyone remember the plan? The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Jaewon would enter through the front, drawing attention and forcing Miguel to commit to his position. Alicia would use the kitchen entrance, moving through the restaurant's service areas to flank any ambush. Colonel Kim and his team would secure the perimeter while Dr. Chen and Tommy coordinated from their mobile command center. What could go wrong? Everything, Alicia thought grimly. Movement inside, Colonel Kim reported. Target acquired. Miguel Torres just entered the private dining room. How many with him? Jaewon asked. 2 bodyguards plus the 4 already in position. 6 armed men in a confined space. Not impossible odds, but not comfortable ones either. Dr. Chen, Alicia said into her comm, any update on our internal situation? A pause. Then, I've identified the source of the leak. Everyone went silent. It's Elena Vasquez, Dr. Chen continued. She's been selling information to multiple organizations, including Torres. But there's more. She's not working alone. Who? Jaewon's voice was deadly quiet. Another pause. Park Min-ho, your second in command. He's been feeding Elena operational details in exchange for debt forgiveness. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Min-ho had been with Jaewon for 5 years, had saved his life twice, had been trusted with the most sensitive information in the organization. Where is he now? Jaewon asked. Unknown. He disappeared 3 hours ago, right after our briefing, which meant Min-ho knew about tonight's operation. He knew about the plan, the timing, the personnel involved. This is a setup, Alicia said. They're not just planning to kill you, they're planning to eliminate your entire inner circle. Tommy, get Dr. Chen and yourself to a secure location, Jaewon ordered. Colonel Kim, extract your team. Negative, Colonel Kim replied. We don't abandon missions. This isn't a mission anymore, it's an execution. Alicia grabbed Jaewon's arm. We can still do this, but we change the parameters. How? We don't go in as planned. We go in as ourselves. 2 people who refuse to be victims. She was already moving, checking her equipment and adjusting her position. Miguel wants revenge for his brother. Give it to him, but not the way he expects. Alicia, trust me, one more time. Jaewon looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the frightened waitress who'd served him coffee, but the champion who had never backed down from a fight. What do you need, he asked. 5 minutes and a distraction. You'll have both. Alicia slipped out of the sedan and moved toward the restaurant's kitchen entrance. The alley was narrow and dark, perfect for approaching unseen. She could hear voices from inside, tense, urgent conversations in multiple languages. Through her earpiece, she heard Jaewon's voice. Miguel, I'm here. Let's finish this. The front door of the restaurant opened, and she could hear his footsteps on the wooden floor. Conversations stopped, chairs scraped against the ground. Ryu Jaewon, Miguel Torres's voice carried clearly through the building. You killed my brother. Your brother was moving drugs through my territory without permission. I gave him 2 warnings, and now I give you one. Kneel, and I'll make your death quick. Alicia used the sound of their conversation to mask her entry through the kitchen. The staff had been cleared out, another sign that this was a planned execution rather than a spontaneous meeting. She moved through the service corridor, her footsteps silent on the worn linoleum. Through the swinging doors, she could see into the private dining room where Jaewon stood facing Miguel across a round table. 6 armed men, just as Colonel Kim had reported. But there was a 7th figure in the shadows, Park Min-ho, holding a pistol aimed at Jaewon's back. The setup was perfect. Miguel would confront Jaewon from the front while Min-ho shot him from behind. Clean, efficient, and impossible to survive. Unless someone changed the equation, Alicia pushed through the swinging doors like a force of nature. Miguel Torres, she called out, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. I'm the one who killed your soldiers. Every gun in the room swung toward her, but she was already moving. Years of training had taught her to read multiple opponents simultaneously, to process threats and opportunities in microseconds. The first bodyguard was closest. She drove her elbow into his solar plexus, then used his falling body as a shield against the second gunman's shots. The third man tried to flank her, but she caught his wrist and redirected his weapon toward the ceiling before driving her knee into his ribs. Chaos erupted. Jaewon used the distraction to dive behind the overturned table, drawing his own weapon. Miguel shouted orders in Spanish, while his remaining men tried to establish clear lines of fire. But Alicia wasn't fighting like a civilian caught in crossfire. She was fighting like someone who had trained for exactly this kind of chaos. Every movement was purposeful. Every strike designed to disable rather than kill, but with enough force to ensure her opponent stayed down. Behind you, she shouted to Jaewon as Min-ho tried to circle around the table. Jaewon spun, his weapon tracking toward his former second-in-command. For a moment, the 2 men stared at each other across the destroyed dining room. 5 years, Jaewon said quietly. I trusted you with everything. You trusted me with nothing, Min-ho replied bitterly. I was your employee, not your partner. When the debts came due, you weren't there. So you sold me out. I sold out a boss who never saw me as anything more than a tool. The philosophical debate ended when Miguel Torres decided to settle matters personally. He emerged from behind his cover, a massive revolver in his hand, his face twisted with rage. "Enough!" he roared. "You both die tonight!" He fired 3 shots in rapid succession, one at J1, one at Alicia, one at the ceiling to emphasize his point. Alicia rolled behind the bar as bullets splintered the wood around her. J1 returned fire, forcing Miguel back into cover. Mino used the confusion to escape through a side door, disappearing into the restaurant's maze of service corridors. "Let him go," Alicia called to J1. "Miguel's the real threat." She was right. Miguel Torres was beyond reason now, consumed by the need for vengeance. He would keep coming until either he was dead or they were. "Miguel," Alicia shouted, standing up behind the bar. "You want to avenge your brother? Face me directly. No guns, no bodyguards, just you and me." The restaurant fell silent except for the sound of Miguel's heavy breathing. "You think you can fight me, little girl?" "I know I can beat you," Alicia replied. "The question is whether you're brave enough to find out." It was a calculated insult, designed to provoke him into making an emotional decision rather than a tactical one. Miguel was larger and stronger, but he was also angry and unfocused. "Fine," Miguel snarled, throwing down his weapon. "I'll break you with my bare hands." He charged around the bar like a bull, his massive fists swinging in wild haymakers. Alicia slipped the first punch, redirected the second, and drove her fist into his kidney with surgical precision. Miguel stumbled but didn't fall. He was tougher than she'd expected. The fight that followed was brutal and brief. Miguel had size and rage on his side, but Alicia had technique and clarity. She picked him apart systematically. A jab to the throat to disrupt his breathing, a hook to the liver to slow his movement, an uppercut to the jaw to scramble his coordination. When Miguel finally collapsed, unconscious but breathing, the restaurant was silent except for the distant sound of sirens. "It's over," J1 said, emerging from cover. Alicia nodded, breathing hard but victorious. "Yeah, it's over." But as they prepared to leave, she realized something had changed between them during the fight. They had moved together like partners who had trained for years, anticipating each other's actions and covering each other's weaknesses. "What happens now?" she asked as they walked toward the exit. "Now we rebuild," J1 replied. "Without traitors, without enemies, without the weight of other people's betrayals. And us." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "What do you want there to be?" Alicia considered the question. A week ago she had been invisible, hiding from her past and working dead-end jobs. Now she was standing in a destroyed restaurant next to a man who had seen her at her strongest and chosen to fight beside her rather than against her. "I want to stop running," she said. "I want to stop letting other people's fear control my choices." "Then don't run," J1 said simply. "Stay. Build something new with me." It wasn't a romantic proposal. It was something deeper, an invitation to partnership, to shared purpose, to a life where her strength would be valued rather than feared. "Partners?" she asked. "Partners," he confirmed. As they walked out of the Golden Dragon together, Alicia realized she was no longer the woman who had served coffee and kept her head down. She was no longer the fighter who had walked away from everything she loved. She was someone new, someone who had chosen to fight for what mattered and won, someone unbreakable. Months later, the new gym occupied an entire city block in Harbor District, its glass facade gleaming in the afternoon sun. "Iron Gate Elite Training Center," read the sign above the entrance, and through the windows, visitors could see state-of-the-art equipment and fighters training at every level, from amateur to professional. Alicia Monroe stood in the main ring, coaching a young woman through defensive combinations. The student was good, fast hands, solid footwork, but she telegraphed her movements. "Don't think so much," Alicia called out. "Trust your instincts." The advice applied to more than boxing. 6 months ago, she had been hiding from her past and working jobs that barely paid the bills. Now she was the co-owner of the most respected training facility in the city, coaching fighters who came from across the country to learn from unbreakable Monroe. The investigation into Marcus Webb's corruption had exposed a network of fight fixing that reached into multiple organizations. Webb himself was serving a 10-year sentence for racketeering, and the fighters he had exploited were finally free to compete honestly. "Better," Alicia said as her student completed a flawless combination. "Remember, power comes from your core, not your arms." Through the gym's office windows, she could see Jaewon on a conference call with investors. The transition from Mafia boss to legitimate businessman had been smoother than anyone expected. His organizational skills and strategic thinking translated well to legal enterprises, and his reputation ensured that competitors took him seriously. The Torres syndicate had collapsed after Miguel's arrest. Some of his lieutenants had tried to maintain control, but without central leadership, the organization had fragmented into smaller, less dangerous groups. Park Min-ho had disappeared entirely. Rumor placed him in Southeast Asia, but Jaewon had decided not to pursue him. Some betrayals weren't worth the energy required for revenge. "Coach Monroe." Her student's voice brought Alicia back to the present. "Are you okay?" "Just thinking," Alicia replied. "Let's work on your footwork." As the afternoon training session wound down, Jaewon emerged from his office and joined her in the ring. He'd traded his expensive suits for athletic wear, though he still moved with the controlled grace that had first caught her attention. "How did the investor call go?" she asked. "They want to fund 3 more locations," he replied, "Chicago, Miami, and Los Angeles." "That's amazing. It's a lot of responsibility. Are you ready for that kind of expansion?" Alicia considered the question. 6 months ago, she would have been terrified by the prospect of such visibility and success. Now she felt only excitement. "I'm ready for whatever comes next," she said, "as long as we face it together." Jaewon smiled, not the dangerous expression she'd first seen at the diner, but something warmer and more genuine. "Partners?" "Partners," she confirmed. As they prepared to close the gym for the evening, a young fighter approached them. He was maybe 17, all elbows and determination, with the hungry look of someone who had discovered their calling. "Coach Monroe," he said nervously, "I was wondering, do you think I could train here? I know I can't afford the full program, but I could clean equipment, help with maintenance." Alicia exchanged a look with Jaewon. They'd had this conversation before about giving opportunities to fighters who had talent, but not resources. "What's your name, Mao?" she asked. Marcus Johnson." "Well, Marcus Johnson, let me tell you something about this gym. We don't turn away fighters who are serious about the sport, but we also don't give handouts. You want to train here, you earn it." The young man's eyes lit up. "Yes, ma'am, whatever it takes. Be here tomorrow at 6 a.m. We'll see what you're made of." As Marcus practically bounced out of the gym, Jaewon shook his head. "You're going to turn this place into a charity." "I'm going to turn this place into what it should have been all along," Alicia replied. "A place where talent matters more than connections." They finished their closing routine in comfortable silence, turning off equipment, checking security systems, reviewing the next day's schedule. It was domestic in a way that would have seemed impossible when they first met, but it felt natural now. Outside, the harbor district was transforming as evening approached. The warehouses and industrial buildings were giving way to restaurants and art galleries, but the neighborhood retained its working-class character. It was the perfect location for a gym that served everyone from professional fighters to office workers looking to learn self-defense. "Dinner?" Jaewon asked as they walked to their car. "Actually, I have somewhere I need to go first." Alicia drove them to Riverside Cemetery, parking near a section of modest headstones overlooking the water. She'd been coming here once a week for the past month, ever since she'd learned the truth about what happened after she disappeared from the fighting circuit. The headstone read, "Jennifer Lightning Rodriguez, 1995-2022, beloved daughter and fighter." Jennifer had been one of the young boxers Marcus Webb tried to control after Alicia left. When she refused to throw a fight, she'd been found dead in her apartment, officially a drug overdose. But everyone in the boxing community knew the truth. "She was 19, Alicia said, placing fresh flowers at the base of the stone. She had a full scholarship to college, but she wanted to fight professionally. Webb convinced her parents that he could make her a star." Jaewon stood beside her, understanding without words why these visits mattered. "I keep thinking about the choice I made," Alicia continued. "Walking away to protect my family. It was the right choice for me, but it left other people vulnerable. You couldn't have saved everyone. Maybe not, but I could have tried. They stood in silence as the sun set over the harbor, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. In the distance, the city lights were beginning to twinkle like stars. She would have been proud of what you've built, Jaewon said finally. We've built, Alicia corrected. None of this would have been possible without you. It was true. Jaewon's business connections had provided the funding and legitimacy needed to establish the gym. His strategic mind had helped them navigate the complex politics of the boxing world, and his unwavering support had given her the confidence to reclaim her identity as a fighter and coach. But more than that, he had seen her potential when she couldn't see it herself. He had challenged her to stop hiding and start fighting for what she believed in. As they drove home through the city streets, Alicia reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, she had been serving coffee to strangers and trying to remain invisible. Now she was building something that would outlast both of them, a place where the next generation of fighters could train without fear of corruption or exploitation. Any regrets? Jaewon asked, as if reading her thoughts. Alicia considered the question seriously. The past 6 months had been challenging, rebuilding Jaewon's organization as a legitimate business, establishing the gym, dealing with the legal aftermath of the restaurant confrontation. There had been moments of doubt, times when the old instinct to run had almost overwhelmed her. But regrets. Only one, she said. I wish I'd met you sooner. Jaewon reached over and took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. We met exactly when we were supposed to. Any earlier and we wouldn't have been ready for each other. He was right. The woman who had walked away from fighting 3 years ago wouldn't have been able to stand beside him in that restaurant. The man who had ruled through fear and intimidation wouldn't have seen her as an equal partner. They had both needed to be broken down and rebuilt before they could find each other. As they pulled into the driveway of the house they now shared, a modest place in a quiet neighborhood, nothing like Jaewon's former safe houses, Alicia felt a sense of completion she'd never experienced before. She was no longer running from her past or hiding from her future. She was exactly where she belonged, with exactly the right person, building exactly the life she wanted, unbreakable and finally unafraid. Thank you for staying until the end. Korean Mafia Lovers has many more intense romance stories waiting for you. Subscribe to the channel to support us in creating new emotional journeys like this one.